3 patrol cars slid into the shell lot with lights strobing off the pumps like somebody just pulled a gun. The woman who called them was standing 3 feet from me clutching a black credit card like it was a badge, screaming that I was violent because I wouldn't let her buy my gas. And the second the first officer stepped out, her face drained so fast I thought she might actually faint. I didn't move to Riverside Meadows to fight anybody. I moved there to disappear for a minute. Quiet street-trimmed lawns, the kind of neighborhood where the loudest sound is a sprinkler clicking at 6 a.m. 22 houses, 1 little pond, 1 entrance sign with flowers that look suspiciously expensive. And of course, a homeowners association. I'm Mike Carter, 48, and at the time my plan was simple: unpack, fix up my late grandmother's place, keep my head down. After a divorce that turned every conversation into a courtroom piece sounded like a luxury item, the first 4 days were fine. Neighbors waved Amazon boxes, stacked up leaves fell. Life looked normal. Day 5. I found a bright white citation tucked under my windshield wiper, $500 for unauthorized commercial vehicle. Not a warning, not a note. A fine. My truck is a regular pickup, under the weight limit, completely legal under the covenants. But the HOA president decided my emergency radio, barely visible through the back window, made it commercial appearing. That was my first introduction to Tracy Palmer. Tracy was the kind of woman who could weaponize a smile. Blonde hair sprayed into place, designer athleisure, and a voice that didn't talk so much as issue decisions. When I knocked on her door to ask about the fine, she didn't invite me in. She stepped outside like she was meeting a contractor she didn't trust. "Oh, you're the new guy," she said, eyes sliding over me like I was a stain on the sidewalk. "The rules are the rules." "I'm fine with rules," I told her. "I'm not fine with made-up math." She did this little laugh, short, sharp. "File an appeal. The hearing's Tuesday at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. on a Tuesday," I repeated. "Most people work." She lifted her eyebrows. "Then I guess they shouldn't violate the covenants." That's when my next-door neighbor, Frank Miller, leaned over our shared fence later that afternoon and gave me the kind of warning you don't forget. Frank was a Vietnam vet with gravel in his voice and zero patience for nonsense. "She smells pushback," he said. "If you don't fold, she'll make it her hobby." I wanted to believe he was exaggerating. He wasn't. Over the next 2 weeks, my mailbox turned into a little horror show: non-compliant trash can placement, improper exterior lighting, unapproved doormat color. I'm not kidding. A doormat. Every notice was printed like a legal document stamped with HOA authority, like that made it holy. And every single one came with a deadline and a fee. Tracy didn't just enforce rules, she performed enforcement. She'd cruise the neighborhood in her BMW like she was on patrol phone, out snapping pictures of people's yards. She'd stand at the edge of driveways with a clipboard, measuring something invisible, then nodding to herself like she'd just solved a crime. I tried the polite route first. Emails documented questions, requests for proof. Her replies were 2 sentences max, always dripping with the same message: comply. Then she escalated into the part that actually matters. One Saturday morning, a city inspector showed up at my door. Not for a random check, for a complaint. 2 days later, a fire safety guy showed up, then a code enforcement notice, then another inspector, like someone kept pushing buttons in a system until my address lit up. It wasn't subtle anymore, it was pressure, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't get under my skin. I started parking my truck differently just to avoid another photo. I caught myself checking my own porch light like I was studying for a test. The neighborhood didn't feel like home. It felt like an interview I couldn't pass. Then Wednesday morning hit. I walked outside and just stopped. All 4 tires on my truck were slashed. My rear window was shattered, and spray paint across the hood screamed out something meant to humiliate me. Big, ugly letters, bright red, the kind of message you don't miss. I stood there in the cold October air, smelling fresh paint and rubber, staring at my own driveway like it had turned into a crime scene, because it had. I documented everything. Photos, angles, timestamps. I pulled security footage and watched a figure in dark clothes move across the frame at 2:17 a.m., fast and angry. By 9 a.m., Tracy was already telling people I did it to myself. She actually filed a report saying I staged the whole thing for sympathy and insurance money. She said it to my patrol officers with the confidence of someone who never expects consequences. That was the moment the emotional arc changed for me. Not dramatic, not poetic, just cold. Because until then, it was paperwork and petty fines. Now it was somebody trying to wreck my property and rewrite reality out loud. That night I sat in my kitchen with a stack of notices and my phone open to Listings thumb hovering over sell. I remember thinking very plainly, maybe I'm the common denominator here. Maybe moving into an HOA neighborhood was just a bad call. Maybe the fastest way to get my life back is to cut my losses and leave. Then I pictured the next person she'd pick, and the next, and I realized the problem wasn't that I didn't know how to live in a neighborhood. The problem was she didn't know where her power ended. 2 hours later, after a brutal 16-hour shift, I pulled into the Shell station on Maple Street, exhausted, running on coffee and routine. I slid my card, grabbed the nozzle, and started pumping like a normal human being. That's when Tracy appeared, like she'd been waiting behind the propane cages. She walked right up, waved a black credit card inches from my face, and said, "Fill it up. On me. That's an order from your HOA president." I just looked at her. "Ma'am, I pay my own way." Her smile snapped off. "You will accept my generosity." "It's not generosity if it comes with an order," I said, calm, because that's what you do when someone's trying to bait you. She stepped between me and my truck like she owned the space. "You don't get to disrespect me in public." I kept pumping. The diesel fumes were thick, and I could feel other customers watching that uncomfortable sideways stare like they were trying to figure out whose breakup they'd accidentally wandered into. Then Tracy did the thing she always did. When she didn't get her way, she reached for the loudest weapon she had. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Emergency at the Shell on Maple Street," she said, voice suddenly shaky in this fake, practiced way. "A violent man is threatening me. He's refusing charity and getting aggressive." I almost laughed, and not because it was funny, because it was insane. She was calling the police, on me, for refusing free gasoline. Within minutes, sirens cut through the air. 3 cruisers rolled in hard and fast, lights bouncing off the pump numbers. The first officer stepped out and froze for half a second, eyes locking on me. Then he straightened. "Chief." Tracy's head whipped around like it physically hurt her to process that word. I didn't say it. I didn't need to. The uniformed officer just did. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Wait, no, he's the one." The officer looked at her, then at me, then back at her. "Ma'am, you called 911. What exactly is the emergency?" She pointed at my hands like I was holding something dangerous. "He's refusing. He's being hostile." The officer's face didn't change. "Refusing? Gas." Tracy's voice jumped an octave. "He threatened me." "Did he touch you?" the officer asked. "No, but did he say he was going to hurt you?" He's intimidating." I finally turned toward her, slow and steady. "Tracy, you filed a report this morning accusing me of vandalizing my own vehicle." She flinched. "And now you're making a false 911 call because I won't let you pay for gas," I said. "Do you want to keep going?" That's when the second officer spoke up quieter, like he was putting pieces together. "Dispatch, can you pull her call history? Any prior incidents tied to this address?" Tracy tried to backpedal. "I'm the HOA president. I have authority here." The first officer nodded once. "You have authority over landscaping rules, not emergency services." She started crying. Of course she did, loud enough for an audience. But her eyes were scanning faces, calculating, trying to find a way to make the room tilt back in her favor. It didn't. They took her statement. They took mine. They pulled the footage from the gas station cameras. They documented everything. And before she could spin another sentence into a weapon, she was being escorted toward the cruiser, still talking, still protesting, still insisting she ran the neighborhood. The door shut. The sound was flat and final. I stood there by the pump hand still on the nozzle, watching her discover in real time that power doesn't count if it's imaginary. And here's the lesson. When someone confuses control with authority, the truth only needs one good moment to catch up.